What's up, guys? This is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about personal development for INFJs and how to create an epic life on your terms. Today I want to talk to you about the cognitive function extroverted sensing versus introverted sensing in regards to decluttering. You may have seen that decluttering is like a huge hype right now. You see shows on Netflix, Home Edit for example, it's a huge hit. Everybody is on this topic, and for the ones of you who've been following my program for a long time know that decluttering is part of physical energy management, which in itself is one of the 5 pillars to an epic life. So I'm a huge fan of it. I think it helps us INFJs in particular to gain energy in order to go for our dreams. So this is a very important aspect. And a lot of you asked me, well, how does that come together when we are not people who value introverted sensing, as in creating order, detail oriented? But I'm here to tell you it is so much more about extroverted sensing, and how we're gonna attack that is the topic of today's video. Before we get started, I want to remind you, if you want to take the next step in creating your INFJ epic life, then work with me privately. You find all the information below. So let me first off talk a little bit about decluttering and why I think it's so important for us INFJs in particular. We need to gain energy. That's why the physical energy management pillar is so popular within the bootcamp participants and with the people I work with, because we see the biggest results right there. This is the basis. In order to create something extraordinary, in order to get out of the hamster wheel and create the life that we want, we need to find as much energy as possible. And clutter in our life keeps us back. It takes up so much of our energy and we're not even aware of it. We all know it's not about time. It's not that we don't have enough time to go after our dreams. On the one hand, it's the mindset thing, right? We don't know what we want. It doesn't feel right. And at the same time, it is that the energy is lacking. It's not the time. You know, if it was a time issue, then we wouldn't be watching series on Netflix or anything like this. So once you know this, then it's time to look at how can I improve my energy. And one of those things is decluttering. Your energy is really bound to the things going on in your life. And this is not just a mental thing. This is also something that you see represented in the outside world. It really is a mirror. If you find somebody who's all restless, I can guarantee you their life is not calm, peaceful, and orderly. They will have parts in their life that are complete chaos, and their external world will mirror that. Why is that? Well, clutter in our mind is really painful. It's uncomfortable. It is really this thing of your mind entirely going on about certain topics. You have thousands of things you're thinking about. And if your environment is all peaceful and calm, you cannot hide from this. This is why if you go into nature and you're by yourself, you're confronted with all those thoughts. And once you're confronted with them, you can overcome it, because this is not something that just happens on accident. This is something that has been built up over years, and your mind has created this in order to protect you from pain. Because the more clutter you have in your mind, the more you have things you need to think about, the less you have to actually confront yourself with the pain of, I'm not really taking charge in my life, I'm not going for the things I want, maybe past trauma, and the list goes on and on. So what I have found is that you can actually help yourself to get to this place if you actively take on decluttering your environment. Because as I said, the more decluttered your environment is, the more you actually have to confront yourself with all of those thoughts, and you do it step by step, and before you know it, you actually go through the pain and you come out a person who has let go of that many things that have burdened you so far. This is a concept that actually works, because most of the time we don't know really what's going on in our mind. Yes, we work on meditation. Yes, we work on visualization. All of the things are helpful. But one more thing, and that will probably take care of some things that you're not even aware of, is decluttering. So that being said, let's talk about extroverted sensing versus introverted sensing. Introverted sensing is all about being detail oriented. And we know that this is not something we like. It's something that we're not particularly good at. And I'm also a fan of looking at your strengths. I'm not somebody who's all about, okay, you have to improve your weaknesses and then you're gonna be okay. What for? It's good to improve in those areas, but just to a point where they're not hindering you. I will never want to be somebody who's all about details, who's all about the nitty gritty things. But that's not what decluttering's all about. And I think this is something that keeps a lot of us back. And once you allow yourself to look at it from the sense of extroverted sensing, two things happen. First off, you actually start loving the process because it helps us to tap into extroverted sensing, which in itself is hard for us. This is this thing where we always talk about, okay, you have this vision and then you have reality. How do you tap into this? It kind of feels like you're living in this bubble and reality is happening outside of you. And how great would it be if you could actually take part in that reality? And I'm not just talking about, okay, I have a job, I go there from Monday till Friday, from 8 till 5. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about you mentally feeling that you're living reality, that you're living in the here and now. It's about how you experience it, because we've all been in this scenario. We as INFJs know what this is about, that yeah, you can take care of yourself, you're all good, but it doesn't feel like you're actually participating. And that's super frustrating and it's very demoralizing. So once you allow yourself to tap into extroverted sensing, for example, through decluttering, you get positively addicted to this. And this will definitely help you to want to add even more to your life. It's like you're living in this bubble and what you're doing is you add more reality to it. It's not that you actually escape your world and you are being in somebody else's reality or you're being the sidekick to somebody else's dreams. All those things that we're so used to. No, what we do is we incorporate more of reality. And another very interesting aspect that so many people are not aware of is that if you tap into extroverted sensing, you actually get better at introverted sensing as well. You might say, how does this work? Well, let me explain to you, and I'll keep it very high level so we don't really get lost in the details here, right? So you can either be somebody who's leaning into the introverted side, going about the NITI loop. And this can be super dangerous because you get back into this thing of I want to understand, and you get to an aspect where SI is really bothering you. So I know we in the MBTI world don't even talk about SI being one of the functions for INFJs, but if you look a little bit deeper in socionics, you see that this still has an effect on us. And if you go more into NITI, that whole loop, SI becomes a problem because you're not really tapping into the SE part of it, much more of the TI, and you recognize how you lose control of your inner feeling. SI is not just about being detail oriented. SI is also about inner peace. It's about staying calm. So when you meditate and you're able to focus your thoughts on one particular stream of consciousness, that in itself is also SI. And when you keep on rethinking things, it's like you're creating clutter in your mind. You're adding more things that are not helping you to move forward. The other alternative is that you actually go into the extroverted route. And that will never make you an extrovert. That will never make you an ENFJ. It will never make you an ESTP. But what it does is it gives you a balance. You will still be an introvert. You'll still be an INFJ first. What you do is just you don't go overboard in that NITI loop, which will drive you crazy. So once you do that and you tap into SE, you're automatically tapping into the sensing world. And with that, by you focusing on extroverted sensing, you are creating way more control and stability in your introverted sensing. You will see this, for example, in ESTP types or in ESFP types. They're all about SE, but their SI is still strong. They still have, when you're in their presence, there is an inner calmness about them. That is one of the things that we're actually so attracted to because there's a stability there. And if you see people who are ISTJs or ISFJs, there's also an external force that they have. It's not that they're tapping into it, but there's just more of this energy there. Same thing with us as INFJs. Okay, we're all in our introverted intuition thing, but still, if we wanted to, we do have control of extroverted intuition. We could go and say, okay, let me think of new possibilities. You know how you can be aware of that if you think like, no, I'm all about this one thing. Yes, we are. But if we're put in a new situation, what do? We create a new story around it. That is only possible because we can tap into, okay, now let me look at this from a new perspective. Let me change my narrative here. So tapping into extroverted sensing, which is your weakest function in the MBTI stack, you'll actually see that you'll also gain much more inner control. And that inner control is a blessing because it's so peaceful. useful. It's like I don't need to do thousands of things. I have actually narrowed down what makes me feel good. And because I've narrowed it down so much, I can then focus on growing in the aspects that I want. Because all the other things that have been clutter so far, I have narrowed them down. I have made them really small, very concise. And from here on out, I can expand. I can use my intuition and I can use my vision. I can use the energy that I will gain through removing all of this clutter in my life, find inner peace through that, and then be able to go and do full force. So I, for example, I'm not involved with as many people as I used to that were outside of my business or the things that are happening in my family life or with my friends, like things and people that are really not helping me to become the person I want to be. So people, for example, that I knew at my last job, they were in my mind, but was there any kind of relationship that helped me to move forward into the direction that I wanted? No. Same thing, there were people that I knew from going out and, people that were friends of friends, and they too weren't helping me to become the person I wanted to be. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, okay, you have to completely narrow everything down. This is not possible and not necessary. You just want to lean into it. If you're at a job right now, and of course you have to make sure that those relationships are working in order to help you improve your financial game, in order to help you build your self-confidence, then this is a good thing, right? We're just saying lean into this. So don't ever underestimate how much decluttering your environment, and it really starts with, let's say, your living environment, your apartment, your kitchen, your drawers, how much of this really affects your overall life, because it is a representation. This is all connected. You might think, oh, it's a little bit hard for me to declutter all those relationships, because most of the time you don't see that there's any other possibility. If you see people who own a lot of things and everything is cluttered and you don't know where to start and you're overwhelmed, it's not that they feel like they have another choice. In their mind, there's the story of, okay, I just have to tidy this up once and then it won't be that hard to keep it tidied up like this, right? These are the stories they're telling themselves, but nothing is really happening. Same thing how I always say, oh, you have this vision and, going for the next better job is not really that vision, so why even start? It's like, it seems like such a small step and it won't really solve the problem, so you don't even start. Same thing, if your apartment is totally cluttered, if you have way too many relationships, things that are bothering you, your mind can't really be still, how's it going to help me if I clean up my kitchen? But it's actually exactly what we have to do. We have to start at some place, because through that step, we say, okay, this is better than how it was yesterday. And I'm not saying, okay, if it falls short to my vision, it's a failure. No. We want to improve. We want to make it better than the day before. And very interestingly, because I've been in this decluttering thing for such a long time, you'll see that people who value extroverted sensing more than introverted sensing, when they start decluttering, it's way more about the things you see on the outside. Way more. So introverted sensing types, they start with their drawers. They might have things laying around in their apartment, but their drawers are tidied up. They have on their computer, their files are all orderly, but their desktop is all over the place. That's a great example of an introverted sensor who started this game of decluttering, and they start from the inside out. We as INFJs, for example, and extroverted sensing types most of the time, we start from the outside. So it was a long time where I had my environment tidied up. I lived very minimalistically, but my drawers, my cupboards, my closet was a mess. And this too was a representation of what was going on in my mind. My life looked great on paper, but internally I knew that those things weren't really happening. But at the same time, I had no urge to tidy up my drawers. I didn't feel like that's gonna change my life. But what did I do? I actually started the process. I started with first my closet, then I started with the kitchen, and we moved on. And step by step, I took on my entire apartment, but I only moved on when I was able to maintain this. So if you tidy up everything and 3 weeks later it's gonna look like this again because you're not gonna be able to keep up with it, don't do this to yourself. Say, I'm gonna start with my sock drawer and I'll keep this decluttered for at least 3 weeks. And once I'm able to do this, then I go to the next thing, because it challenges your mind. It's a different way of thinking. Once you've been able to rewire your mind to such an extent that it can keep this balance, it will be that much easier to also keep this balance when it comes to things you want to achieve in your life. prioritizing the things that are gonna actually move your life forward. It's a hugely interesting process, and I encourage you to tap into it. This is not just about like aesthetics or finding inner peace. This actually will have a huge impact on you creating the INFJ epic life you always wanted. This will tap into ways of thinking you would have never thought possible. And that's what we do, right? We want to have that challenge. We as INFJs look for the extraordinary way to tackle those thought processes. I really hope that helped you and inspired you to start decluttering your life. Start with your environment. It will help you a lot, and that extra energy will give you a boost you can't even imagine. Take your time with it. And remember, if you want some more personal guidance in this aspect and work with me privately, you find all the information below. And if you want to watch another video now that is in line with today's topic, then watch the video on INFJ success habits. Like always, guys, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.